Derek, thank you very much. And that treatment of Haitian migrants at the border is sparking outrage, and that might be putting it mildly. But what does the law say? Enid Trucios-Haynes is a scholar and professor of immigration law at the University of Louisville, and she joins us now. And Ms. Trucios-Haynes, before we go any further, I want you to look at these images of the Border Patrol agents chasing away the Haitian migrants. Are they on American soil? And if that is the case, can't they be seeking asylum?
Well, that's a great question. And ordinarily, when we're not under a public health directive under Title 42 of the U.S. Code, there would be options. We have temporary protected status that's available. Many Haitians in the United States are beneficiaries of that status, which is designed to address crises in a home country, humanitarian disasters, natural disasters. In addition, because of this public health requirement now under Title 42, people who show up at the border are not able to apply for asylum. And that's been a serious detriment to many people who have been showing up at the border. And most recently in this particular case, where we see the treatment of people who are on their way to a border checkpoint to make their case and but may have entered and crossed the border without lawful documentation. And so there's been a call for the administration to use something that's called humanitarian parole, which would allow people to enter the United States and submit their claims for asylum here in the United States. It's worth mentioning that the Biden administration has not changed the policy that existed under the Trump administration using Title 42 to block the admission of people into the United States at the southern border. And we recently saw the crisis of many Central Americans coming to the border and being refused entry. So this is a problem that the administration needs to address. And certainly the humanitarian crisis that's happening requires action.
I want to take another look at these Border Patrol agents once again. And here's the reason that I want to do it this time. Two questions. Who controls the Rio Grande? Is it the U.S. or Mexico? And that would indicate whether or not that they are in the United States or in Mexico. And also the issue of whether or not this is a health control situation, whether or not these people were concerned about their health, or whether or not they're more concerned about the fact that these people were going to get into the United States, because it does not look like they're concerned about, oh, I'm going to get sick from COVID. It looks like I don't want these Haitians here.
Absolutely. And there's been differential treatment historically of Haitian migrants to the United States compared to other migrants. In the past, in the 1980s, as you referred to, the comparison was made to Cuban migrants under a policy at that time that allowed Cuban migrants to come in and did not permit Haitians to come in. This kind of treatment clearly, if it's on the U.S. border side, is completely uncalled for, and I believe that the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has apologized, but that does not address the humanitarian issue of people living in these conditions and what the U.S. role could be in addressing that. So clearly there's no justification for that kind of treatment by Custom and Border Patrol officers.
I will quote the late Peter Jennings in Kosovo. I believe it was Bosnia or Kosovo. And there were refugees in a refugee camp. And he said, where is the humanity of the United States? And looking at the images that he was looking at, we see now a humanitarian crisis on the border with Mexico. And yet no desire on the part of this government or the Mexican government to alleviate the humanitarian crisis by delivering food, water, aid, vaccines, etc. Are these things that are prohibited under any type of international law, or is this just simply tone deaf on the part of two administrations, one Mexican, one American?
Well, generally under international law, any person who shows up at the border and requests asylum, says that they have a fear of returning to their home country, must have a hearing to determine whether they're eligible to be asylee here in the United States and have that benefit of being granted asylum. The problem is this public health order, which has been in place since March 2020, which first under the Trump administration has not been changed by the Biden administration. And that overrides the um, ordinary process for the entry of migrants at the border. So we note that the Biden administration has changed the policy of returning um, unaccompanied minors. My understanding is that the border here now, unaccompanied minors are permitted to enter. But that is not addressing the humanitarian crisis. And this humanitarian crisis is just evidence of what's been happening along the border throughout the summer, of trying to return people back to Mexico, and in this case, back to Haiti, because it's the identification of the home country of these individuals.
Final question before I let you go, and that is, I live in Northern Virginia. I flew out of Dulles recently to go down to our home studios in Tallahassee, and I was struck by what I saw at the airport, which was that they had a station set up to test the people coming in from Afghanistan for COVID and also to administer shots. The Afghan refugees, I believe that 65,000 will be allowed to come into this country. Is there not a concern about their COVID status? Because the last time I checked, Afghanistan didn't have an 80% vaccination rate either.
Absolutely. And so, and one of the ways that the government has been distinguishing between different groups of migrants coming into the United States is whether they are attempting to enter unlawfully into the United States without proper documents. And that is the situation along the U.S.-Mexico border, and that's how the administration is viewing it. It is the administration's choice to have a more lenient policy on the border. And so by refusing to grant humanitarian parole to people or consider other kinds of options that might be available under immigration law is not required, right? So we have this public health order that is overriding all of the other policies that would allow Haitian migrants to come into the United States. I would say with regard to Afghan refugees, the distinction the administration would make is that those individuals are not entering without documentation. It has been an emergency airlift, and there is a process for entry. That does not excuse the administration for not providing humanitarian relief and recognizing, I mean, these pictures that you're showing are outrageous and should not happen anywhere near the border and should not be initiated by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents. There is no excuse for this kind of behavior, but it exemplifies the kinds of actions that happen at the border with regard to many migrants that show up at the border without documentation, and has been happening in other instances. But this, what we're seeing, is outrageous and calls for more than an apology.
We are so glad that you basically have joined us on this issue to provide us with what the law says. And that split screen says it all. In one instance, you had migrants being walked through the airport, even though they had to go through the gauntlet of the Taliban to get to safety. I believe that is Miss G, the young soldier who was actually killed trying to help them out, saying, "I love my job." And on the other side of the screen, you do see the Border Patrol agents chasing the Haitians away. Enid Trucios-Haynes, she is an immigration law scholar and professor. Ms. Haynes, I thank you very much for being with us, because you have provided us with the legal foundation for our next segments as we ask more questions about what it is that we saw, because the administration says don't believe your lying eyes. And in this case, we can't help with what we see. Ms. Haynes, thank you very much for being with us.